Alright, what is going on, guys? It is XLT here, bringing you a brand new video on my channel, and I know that I haven't been uploading as consistently or as frequently as I said I was going to while I was on spring break. I wanted to spend some time with my family, hadn't seen them in a while, and I got sick, so my voice wasn't sounding very good, and I was sniffling, and I was sneezing all over the place, and it wasn't a pretty sight, but I'm back to uploading now, back at college. Hopefully I'll be able to pump out some more videos in my free time, more position ranking videos, mock drafts, all that good stuff, leading up to the NFL draft. Today is going to be another position rankings video. We're going to be doing the wide receivers in this video, and it's one of the more intriguing positions in this draft class, I have to say. There's a lot of good talent, there's definitely a lot of first round talent, but there's a ton of guys in this class that I would validate taking in the second, third, fourth round over taking guys in the third round, or in the first round rather. But it's just very bottom heavy. There's a lot of guys in the later rounds, or not later, but in the middle rounds, you know, rounds 3 and 4, there's a lot of good picks that can be had right there. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the video. At the number 5 spot, we've got a guy who absolutely tore up the combine. He already had his name on the map, but he made his name even more known by all of the great events that he did at the combine. He absolutely showed out, looked like one of the best wide receivers in the class, and in my opinion, he was very under the radar during the season. LSU had some quarterback troubles, and they didn't really get him the ball that much, and maybe saying LSU kind of gave it away, but number 5 on my list is going to be Chark from LSU. Like I said, he absolutely killed the combine, ran a 4.3, 4.40. I think he had like a 40 or a 41-inch vertical jumper in the gauntlet, very good, ran deep routes, very good, and I think that he's going to be a very good wide receiver in the NFL. He's got a lot of potential. His size is very, very good. He's got a very good frame. You know, he's about 6'3", 6'2", about 200 pounds, and he runs like nobody's business. So being that, like the height and speed combo that he has is very, very good. It's not like he's, you know, 5'9" and running a 4.3. He's 6'2" or 6'3". I can't exactly remember what he was listed at, but he's got good size, good NFL size. He might need to put on a little bit more weight. 200 pounds is a little light for a guy, especially who's, you know, 6'2", 6'3", very stretched out. But, you know, he handles his size very well. He excels in separation on medium and deep routes. He really does just run by people on deep routes from time to time. I saw in the Mississippi State game and in a few other games, he was just burning the quarterbacks, and then he's really good on out routes and comebacks. Really good at selling it vertical and then coming back and making it hard for the D-back to stop and then try and jump the route or anything like that. So he's very good at creating separation in the medium middle route game, and I think that's where he excels. He also excels at being a field stretcher, really getting the ball down the field. No, not him getting the ball, but him creating space, separating from the D-backs down the field, creating, like, you know, a wide open play, a big play that the quarterback can just chuck it up and hope that DJ can come down with it, which he does most of the time. And another thing that he adds is the return game. He's a very, very, very good returner. I think earlier in the year he had like 2 touchdowns this year, I'm pretty sure, 2 or 3. And for a guy that's 6'2", to be that quick and that agile, being a return man in the NFL is a very, very, very hard thing to do. It's one of the hardest jobs. It's one of the toughest jobs out there. Guys like Tyreek Hill, who are the best at it, you know, they didn't just get that way. You know, it takes a lot of practice. Him and Dante Pettis are 2 very good return men in this class, and I think if you're going to draft Chark, he's probably more of a, you know, second or third round guy, early third, late second, or not. I'd probably put him like middle to late second, early third at the lowest. I think maybe probably middle third at the lowest. He's got a big range of where he could go, but definitely after the combine, I think that boosted his stock way, way, way up. Not a lot of people knew who he was necessarily in terms of like the public eye, but then they saw him, you know, show out at the combine, and then he just got his name put on the map, and he absolutely tore it up. So that was good for him. Some of the things I think he struggles with a little bit, he doesn't always high point the ball. He's 6'2", he's really long, really lanky, really athletic, and he doesn't necessarily always go up and get the ball. He kind of lets it come to him. And in the NFL, everybody contests every ball. I don't think I've ever seen a play where a guy just like, where a D-back just lets the wide receiver catch a ball. You know, they try and defend it as best they can, and they're going to go up there and they're going to try and get the ball for their team. You got to go up and do the same. He didn't necessarily always do that at LSU, and I think that's one thing he's going to have to work on. He's not super physical against the press. I don't think he had a great bench rep. I think he only had like 13 or 14 maybe, which is pretty good for wide receivers. But his arms are super long, but he's not a very physical wide receiver, and he's more of a speed elusive guy, which is kind of, you know, a weird profile to have when you're like 6'3" and you're kind of a speed guy. But, you know, that's just one thing I think he needs to work on, is being able to handle the press better, being able to, you know, be active with his hands and get away from it. He's also a little bit lazy with the get off. He doesn't always just fire off the ball, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was just something that was a little bit inconsistent for me. It's like a little, you know, kind of tink that I caught, just, you know, he wasn't really getting off the ball all that fast. or all that consistently. And he does catch the ball on his body quite often. He doesn't like it, kind of goes along with the doesn't always high point. He lets the ball come to him, and then he catches it with his stomach or with his forearms and doesn't really go out there with his hands. That sometimes accounts for drops. It could bounce off your chest plate, it could bounce off your stomach, off your skin, but it's not always a bad thing. But DJ Chark at the number 5 spot I think is pretty good for him. It may be too high, maybe too low, but I like him at number 5. I think he's got a lot more potential than some of the other guys in this class, or at least on this list. Moving into the number 4 spot, I have Anthony Miller from Memphis, a guy who really didn't show out at the combine. I don't even think he ran a 40. I think he did some of the other drills. I know he definitely did the bench, but I don't think he ran the 40, and I don't think he did some of the other drills. I don't even think he did the vertical. I think he saved those 2 things for his pro day. But he got 22 on the bench, which is really surprising. 22 is a very, very good number for wide receivers. There were some offensive linemen at Orlando Brown who didn't even get into the 20s, and Anthony Miller, a guy who's, one of the more physical wide receivers in this class, even though his stature doesn't really promote that as much, showed that he could, he's got NFL level strength, and some people were kind of questioning that, but I think that he kind of settled that debate with, the bench press. But Anthony Miller, nonetheless, some of the things I think he's very, very good at, his strengths, as most people like to call things that people are good at. He's got very good footwork. I noticed that he wasn't really sloppy, and that his steps weren't weird, and that he wasn't like crossing over his feet or anything like that. He's got very good footwork. He chops his feet. His foot placement, his foot technique, his when he's running the routes and after the routes is very, very good. He's not sloppy. He doesn't take huge long strides. He takes choppy steps to cut very quickly in and out of routes, and it's very good. He's got some of the best hands in this draft class as well. Very strong hands. He doesn't really drop a lot of balls, and that's also due to Riley Ferguson putting them where they belong. But he's got very good hands. He can go up. He catches a lot of contested balls. At least the film that I watched, and I watched about 8-9 games of him. So he goes up. He gets a lot of balls. He's very good with his hands. He's very good in the contested game too. Even though he's only about 5'11". So another thing he's very good at is that he's pretty elusive after the catch. He does like to run around and try and make something happen after the catch. He's not just a guy who's a possession receiver, just goes down, catches the ball, and then that's all he gets. He likes to make plays after the catch, and he's physical enough, he's elusive enough to do so, and he does that very well. Another thing he's good at is he plays physical, or it's not really something he's good at, it's just something that I noticed about him that I think is a very good positive note, that he plays very physically and with a passion. He goes out there and he gives 110%, and that's very true for a lot of the guys in this draft class. I don't think I've seen a guy, he goes out there and he catches a touchdown, he's all pumped up. It's not just another touchdown. Everything means something to this kid, and I think that's a very good thing to have. And he plays physically in the run game. He likes to block here and there. He also likes to play physical when he gets pressed and against other cornerbacks and safeties, so I think that's good too. Another thing he's very good at, his body control and adjustment on jump balls. There were some, I think it was the game again, who was it against? I can't remember who it was against, but it was the game that he had like 4 or 5 touchdowns. 3 of the touchdowns that he had to like jump and twist in the air and shift and go up and get a ball, and I was just amazed at the way that he could control his body and the way he could position himself to be in like the best area, in the best situation to catch the ball, even though he's only like 5'10". It's just crazy what this guy can do. Some of the things I think that his bad marks, his ticks, his minuses, his weaknesses, not necessarily like weaknesses, some of these things he can't really help, but some things that I think he could work on and that I think that are going to hold him back from being higher on this list. He struggles with separation from time to time. Sometimes he can get separation, sometimes he can't, and it's kind of inconsistent when he can and when he can't get separation. It's kind of like when he chooses to. Sometimes he chooses to run a route really well, and sometimes he doesn't. You've got to run your routes as consistently as you can, because then people start picking up on your tendencies, especially D-backs and D-coordinators. They'll say, oh, if he takes this step this way and he's rubbing his hands on a Tuesday with no wind, then he's doing this. It's just crazy, but he struggles with that from time to time. Sometimes I think that's with his speed a little bit. He's not one of the fastest guys in this draft class, and I think that kind of hinders him a little bit, but he's not exceptional in the blocking game, but he does like to get a little bit chippy. He'll throw a shoulder like wide receivers like to do. He'll throw a blindside shoulder, or he'll shove a guy, but he's not going to be, a big run blocker like Brandon Marshall was or anything like that. Also, he drops easy passes from time to time. There were numerous accounts where it was a screen pass, or it was an out, or it was a slant, and he was just dropping the ball, and there was like nobody near him. So he's got to really really focus on getting the ball in his hands before he makes a move. I think he's just trying to, think about what's going to happen down the field before he's thinking about what's actually happening right now. So that's just got to be focus and timing and technique and all that stuff. Then the last thing is going to be his age. He's going to be 24 years old as a rookie. That's a little bit old for wide receivers because they don't necessarily, sometimes they don't last the longest. It's one of the more dangerous positions in terms of, with the whole concussion thing and injuries and stuff like that. But there are guys that go throughout careers very, very quickly, and they don't really stay on teams for that long. But I think if he's going to be 24, he's got to prove to be one of the better wide receivers right away. He's not going to really have a lot of time to develop. So I think if he's going to be a wide receiver that's going to be worth anybody's while in the NFL, he's going to have to, prove that he can be a starter day one. And I think he could be, but I'm not sure. He'd probably be a very good, he's probably in like a Juju Smith-Schuster situation where he could be a day one starter, but not a number one wide receiver, probably like a 3 or a 2 option. But yeah, that's Anthony Miller at the number 4 spot. Moving on to the 3 spot, we've got Courtland Sutton from SMU, one of the guys who has been unanimously and kind of continuously considered to be in the top, 5 wide receivers. I don't think I've seen anybody with him out of the top 5 in terms of position rankings or anything like that, but he's one of the better wide receivers, and he's one of my favorite wide receivers in this class. I like the big body receivers. I like the guys who can go up and get the ball and make the plays in the end zone, red zone threats. Those are my kind of guys. I'm a huge Calvin Johnson fan, so maybe that speaks to it a little bit, but going over some of his strengths, he's the best jump ball receiver in this class. I haven't seen a guy better than him at going up and getting a ball no matter who's guarding him. I'm sure if they carbon copied him and then put him, Courtland Sutton was guarding Courtland Sutton, the wide receiver, would be able to go up and get the ball and bring it down over the cornerback. So I think that he was the guy that I would trust with a game-winning touchdown. I think that if I had to go to somebody on a corner fade, I'd go, or on like an end zone fade, I'd go to him. Best jump ball receiver in this class, super strong hands, super physical at going up and getting the ball and establishing his position and making sure the D-back doesn't get the ball. Another one of his strengths is that he is an extreme red zone threat, like I just said. Corner fade, slants, you can go up, high point the ball, get it to him, you make sure that he gets it. He may be a better option than trying to run it in from the 3-yard line, maybe just slanting him or giving him an out or giving him a fade, just something like that, like an AJ Green situation, a Brandon Marshall situation, just throwing it up to your biggest, best guy, letting him go get it, I think is a good situation for Courtland Sutton to be in. He's great on contested balls. Like I said, that's kind of been the theme for the first little bit of this video, but he's great on contestant balls. He's great on contested balls, just going up and getting them no matter who's trying to go up and get it. No matter who's guarding him, he can go up. He's physical, he's big, he's strong, his hands are great, and he goes up and he gets the ball no matter the situation. He's got great body control when going for the ball. That applies for anything. That applies for an out route where he's close to the sideline, that a corner fade, a post over the middle, anything like that, a corner route, it doesn't matter. He's very good at going and making sure that his body is between him and the D-back, making sure that he's in a position to go and make the best play he can, and he's probably the best run blocker in this draft. He's a huge dude. He's like 6'4", I think he's like 220 pounds. He put up good bench press numbers at the combine, and he's a very good run blocker, very physical, a guy who likes to get in there and dominate the cornerback. There were a few plays where I was watching him just drive dudes straight out of bounds, and I really like that. It shows that you're not just all about catching the ball, that you're about helping the team in the run game as well. Some of the things I think are negatives for him: he had bad quarterback play at SMU, and I don't think that's a negative on him. That's just saying like he may have not gotten the best numbers or the most looks because the quarterback play was a little bit inadequate. He's better on longer routes in terms of all the route trees. He's not as good on slants or outs or 10-yard digs or pigtails. He's better on posts and streaks and fades and all that stuff. He's more of a deep threat guy, just like a jump ball contestant dude. And I think that's that's not necessarily a bad thing, but he's kind of one-dimensional in that aspect. And I think that he may need to work on his intermediate and short route game. And he's not elusive after the catch at all. He's physical, like he'll run you over and he'll put a stiff arm on you, but he's not going to be a guy who's going to make a move and try and score. He's more of a possession guy. He's more of just like a guy you throw to over the middle on a dig, or not necessarily a dig, but more like a post or a corner or something like that, and you just hope that he can just catch it and get down, or catch it and get fight for a couple more yards. He's not a guy that's going to make big plays after the catch, but he's a guy that you can definitely go to in crunch time situations if you need a touchdown and you're close to the end zone, or if you need like a deep play, and that's a guy that I would trust more than anybody in this draft class to go to. Moving on to the number 2 wide receiver in this video, I have DJ Moore from Maryland. For me, a guy who kind of came on later in the scene, wasn't necessarily a front runner or a top guy towards the beginning of the season, but as the season progressed and as the season went along and as the combine came around, he really did show that, you know, he could be one of the better wide receivers in this class. And after comparing him to guys, I'm going to put him at the number 2 spot. Some of the things I think he's good at, he's very good at separation. He gets good separation on comeback routes and medium routes like digs, slants, curls, comebacks, stuff like that. He's very good at getting separation. He sells vertical and then makes a nice cut. He's very good at that, very good at getting open in the medium route area, and I think that's where he excels. He's exceptional in the screen game, very good with the ball in his hands. He's a guy who's very elusive, very quick, and can you know, make plays with the ball in his hands. You just got to find a way to get it to him. Elusive after the catch, that kind of goes along with, you know, being exceptional in the screen game. Just if he's got the ball in his hands, he's going to try and make a play, and he's very good at doing that. He can go up for the ball even though he's got a smaller frame, kind of like Anthony Miller in that sense. He goes up for contested balls. He goes up and gets balls even though he's not the biggest. He does have a very good vertical. He had a pretty good vertical jump at the combine. But he goes up and gets the ball like he's Courtland Sutton, like he's, you know, a 6'5" wide receiver. He goes up and gets it, and he tries, you know, his hardest to go up and get every ball. He's got very good footwork. His steps are short, choppy, very good. He doesn't, you know, let his feet necessarily control him. He controls his feet. He doesn't get outside of himself when he's running routes. He makes sure that his cuts are precise and they're very good. And that's something that a lot of wide receivers are kind of lazy with. They just kind of run the route. DJ Moore is very good at selling the route with his feet as well as with his upper body, and he also runs all of his routes with the same speed about. It's not necessarily full speed or anything like that, but he, you know, when he gets up and starts building up to the route, you know, he runs every route with the same speed. So he runs, and his tendencies are very similar for every route. He doesn't really have, like, you know, if he gets off fast, he's not going to run a comeback or he's not going to run a slant. He runs everything the same way, and it's very hard for the D-back to pick up on stuff like that because they really look for tendencies on certain routes. And he adds to the return game. Not necessarily one of the best in the country. He's not like a Dante Pettis or anything like that, but he's a guy who can, I think he averaged some pretty good net return yards and stuff like that throughout his season, throughout at least this last season at Maryland. So he's pretty good with the ball in his hands. Like I said, he's just a playmaker. You get the ball in his hands and he can do some stuff with it. So I think he's going to add to the return game, but I wouldn't say that's anywhere near the top of his strength list. Some of the weaknesses I have down for him, in that he's not super physical. He's not a guy that's going to be able to break press super easily. He's going to struggle a little bit against physical corners, like a guy like Richard Sherman, or I'm trying to think who else is, like Aqib Talib. Physical corners, he's going to struggle against them a little bit, but that's just going to come with, you know, learning how to deal with them in the NFL. That's just something he's going to have to work on. Plays somewhat slow. He doesn't, I can't really tell if he plays full speed or not. It's kind of like the James Harden thing where, you know, he's not like running the entire game, but, you know, he looks good when he's doing stuff. So I don't think he necessarily is at full speed all the time, but when he needs to, he can turn on the burners. He can get past somebody if he needs to. And I think that he's just going to have to learn how to play full speed, because in the NFL, guys aren't jogging. Like, they're getting a check. Like, they need to play full speed. And so I think that he's going to have to kick up his engine a little bit, kick up his motor, and learn how to play full speed like the rest of these guys in the NFL, at least on the defense side of the ball, do. And he's inconsistent with his route preciseness. He kind of rounds routes off a little bit. You know, his footwork is good in the routes. Like I said, footwork was one of his strengths, but it's just like he kind of rounds routes off a little bit. He doesn't necessarily make them sharp all the time. He's just inconsistent in that factor, but his footwork is still good. And yeah, that's DJ Moore for you. Let's move on to the number 1 wide receiver in this class, and I'm pretty sure you guys might probably already know who it is. With the number 1 spot in this wide receiver ranking video, I have Calvin Ridley, the guy who everybody agrees and is in consensus with that is the number 1 overall wide receiver in this draft class. Before the season started and in the first couple weeks, there was a little bit of debate whether it was you know, Calvin Ridley or whether it was Courtland Sutton. And as the season went on, we kind of found out that Calvin Ridley was the guy who we all thought he was, and that is the number 1 overall wide receiver in this draft class. You know, he is the number 1 overall wide receiver, but I don't think he even gets taken until about like pick 16, or, you know, I don't even think any wide receiver should be taken until about pick 16 of the draft this year. There's not really, there's just a lot of talent at a lot of other positions that are of higher need to a lot of different teams. So like it's like I said in the intro, it's a very bottom heavy class. Guys that are going to go later in the rounds, towards the middle, like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, I think is going to be really rich with wide receivers. And then there are going to be some guys who you can get in the 5th and 6th round that can help your team. But Calvin Ridley at the number 1 wide receiver spot. He's a route technician. He runs every route the same way. He runs at full speed, and it's really hard for D-backs to gauge whether he's going to run a dig, whether he's going to run a slant, whether he's going to run a comeback, whether he's going to run a go. And he's just a route route technician. His footwork is great. His hands are great in terms of, like, you know, not giving away anything, but he's just very good in the routes, very precise, very consistent. He also has very good speed and athleticism, one of the more athletic wide receivers in this draft class. Very explosive, very fast, very quick. With the ball in his hands and with the ball out of his hands, you know, setting up for a route, he's very quick, very athletic, and when he's got the ball in his hands, he can make a play, he can get away from people, very elusive and very quick. I said quick like 5 times, but he pushes vertical on every route, which is another good thing, because if you sell vertical, then it's easier for you to come back and get a ball that was underthrown or a ball that is a comeback route, because if you sell vertical on a comeback, you're probably going to get the catch, depending on how good your quarterback is. But if you can create that separation, and you can you know, get the D-back away from you by selling vertical, then that's a very good thing. He breaks in and out of routes very good. He gives head fakes, he gives foot fakes, body fakes, he gives pretty much everything. Like I said, this whole thing kind of ties in with his route technician. Being a route technician, you know, he's very good. He doesn't really round routes or anything like that. He's not lazy, he's not slow. Very consistent, very quick, very precise in his routes. And he's good after the catch too. Like I said, he's very good at making plays. He's kind of like DJ Moore in that sense. He's a playmaker. He's a guy who is going to try and make a play. He'll run across the field, cut up, do a bunch of stuff, spin, juke, all that stuff to try and make a play for his team, to try and get them into better scoring position. And then some of his weaknesses, he's not super physical. He's not one of the bigger guys in this class. He's not like a Courtland Sutton. He's not like a Jamon Moore. He's not like, you know, an Anthony Miller. He's not like any of those guys. He's more of a, in the NFL, I think he would excel very much in a slot role. He's not a guy who's going to be a great blocker or anything like that. He's not going to be a guy who's super physical and beats. He's okay against the press, but he's not going to, you know, just rip a presser off of him. He's not just going to, you know, shove him. He's going to try and get around him with his feet and with his hands. He's not going to try and run through him or anything like that. He's not very good in jump ball situations. He's got a pretty good vertical, but I think it's just more of a strong hands thing. His hands are consistent, but they're not strong. He doesn't excel in jump ball or contested ball situations, at least when he has to go up in the air. If it's an out route and the D-back tries to jump in, he's like, you know, fighting with him over that, then I think he would win. But just in jump ball situations, he doesn't excel very well in there. He's more of a possession wide receiver, a guy who can just, you know, run across the field and you bullet it to him, and then he, you know, will go down or try and get a couple more yards. But another weakness that I think he has, or just something that a lot of people have like a minus mark or a tick on him for, is his age. He's going to be a 24-year-old rookie, similar to Anthony Miller. You know, and if he's going to want to be a relevant wide receiver, he's going to have to prove that he can start day one right away, and he's not going to have as much patience to develop as like a 21 or a 22-year-old guy would, because he's 2 years older. These guys think that, or the scouts think, and in my opinion, he should be able to start day one. He should be a number one wide receiver. He should be able to come in there and have an immediate impact. He shouldn't be a guy that you're going to have to sit behind anybody else for the, you know, a season or half a season or anything like that. So yeah, that's that's not Anthony Miller. That's Calvin Ridley for you, and that's the number one overall wide receiver in this draft class. All right, that's going to do it for the video, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. I do enjoy the feedback, reading the comments and all that good stuff. And in the comment section down below, if you want to or if you feel like it, let me know what you think of my rankings, whether you think I put people too high or too low, or whether you think I left somebody off the list entirely. I'm going to be keeping up with these videos. This is probably the style of video I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to do like a free agency reaction video soon, and probably another mock draft before the draft starts, or before the draft happens, which I'm going to be tuning into very, very closely, as I do pretty much every year. So yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. This has been XLT signing out.